Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to see you all. My name is Harriet Harvey Horn. I am the past co-chair of the Climate Reality Bay Area chapter. It's really wonderful to see you all here tonight. I understand that we not only have quite a few Climate Reality Bay Area people, but also a nice representation from Cool the Earth and Ride and Drive Clean. So thank you, all of you that joined us from whichever corner of the Bay Area, whichever org you brought you here. We're thrilled to bring this event, Zero Emission Vehicles, Expert Insights for Climate Advocates, to the Bay Area climate community. I'll be turning things over to our marvelous moderator and our speakers in just a moment. But first, just a couple of introductory things. As always, per custom for our chapter events, we open with a land acknowledgement. With respect, we acknowledge the Ohlone, Miwok, Patwin, and other indigenous peoples whose ancestral lands we currently occupy in the greater San Francisco Bay region. This land acknowledgement helps remind us of the historic and ongoing oppression of indigenous people, how the taking and occupying of indigenous lands and the exploitation of indigenous people and those lands is directly connected to the climate crisis, and how building relationships with and following the leadership of indigenous people here and everywhere is crucial as we seek and build long-term solutions to the global climate crisis. So just quickly, I always like to kind of see a show of hands for whom is this your very first Climate Reality Bay Area event? I got to scroll across. Thank you. It looks like several people. This is your first time. Well, it's wonderful to have you here. Because we have some new people here, I want to tell you just a little bit about our chapter and our organization. The Climate Reality Project is an international nonprofit organization founded and chaired by former U.S. Vice President and Nobel laureate Al Gore. Mr. Gore founded Climate Reality in 2007, shortly after the release of his award-winning documentary, An Inconvenient Truth, with the mission to mobilize a global grassroots network of climate advocates. Today, Climate Reality spans 170 countries with over 50,000 climate reality leaders around the world trained by Mr. Gore to speak truth to power about the climate crisis and its solutions. The Bay Area chapter is one of the earliest and largest regional chapters of the Climate Reality Project. Since our founding in 2017, we have taken the Climate Reality mission to the local level with over 1,600 members, catalyzing solutions to address the climate crisis and climate justice across the San Francisco Bay Area. Our activities are anchored in the core tenets of a Climate Reality mission to educate and inform the public, to use a climate justice lens in all we do, and to mobilize a grassroots network of climate advocates to take action that will lead us to a cleaner, safer, more prosperous, and thriving future. We are compelled by the conviction that the Bay Area and California can lead and serve as a model of a regenerative future for the rest of the United States and the world. And we invite you to join us or learn more about our programs, teams, and the ways you can engage in climate action with us by visiting our website at climaterealitybayarea.org. Okay, so here we are, 6 years and counting, to have our greenhouse gas emissions, cut them in half. And the reality is that we still have a pretty heavy lift in front of us. So the Climate Reality Project has launched this campaign to kind of mobilize people in their personal decisions, their personal actions, their personal advocacy called the Electrify Your Life campaign. And our chapter has kind of jumped on that bandwagon. Last month, we really focused on building electrification and home electrification, not only what we can do personally, but how you can most successfully advocate with your greater community, your relatives and colleagues and whatnot. So those were great events, and we have, you can check out our home electrification event with Quick Carbon's CEO on our YouTube channel. I encourage you to do that. It was a really inspiring event. So what we do this month, though, is we're turning our lens to the number one contributor of greenhouse emissions in California, the transportation realm. And so we couldn't be more delighted to have these expert speakers this evening. So where are we with all this? And How can we make the personal decisions if we haven't yet to electrify our transportation? And moreover, we're climate messengers, all of us, and we have the opportunity to influence the people around us by engaging in conversations. So I'm going to turn it over at this point. I'll not belabor it any further on my end to my organizer and moderator and our tech host this evening, Kevin Morrison, to introduce our esteemed guests.
So it is my pleasure to introduce Carleen Cullen. I first met Carleen in a hip-hop dance class, and Carleen is a pretty darn good dancer. I admired that. Then I discovered that Carleen is a pretty darn good climate activist, and I very much admired that. She is the co-founder and executive director of the nonprofit Cool the Earth and Ride and Drive Clean, a collaborative campaign delivering consumer-focused educational programs to accelerate EV adoption. She served as Governor Newsom's EV policy advisor during his gubernatorial campaign. The governor later implemented her primary policy advice to ban the sale of new gas cars. In 2021, Carleen launched the Reliable Electric Transportation Initiative to improve the reliability of EV charging infrastructure. She is a subject matter expert and co-authored a study on the topic with UC Berkeley. As you might guess from the photo we used to publicize this event, she is working with government leaders on solutions to improve EV reliability from the driver's perspective. She is a member of ChargeX, the National Charging Experience Consortium, led by Idaho National Labs. Again, her work is focused on improving the driver experience. She is the recipient of the prestigious Jefferson Award for Public Service and a Climate Reality Project leader who received her Green Ring in 2012 in San Francisco. Everyone, please welcome Carleen Cullen.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for the gracious introduction. And thanks, everybody, for joining in. And Harriet, thank you for inviting me to be a speaker. I wanted to give an overview. I'll be giving kind of a high-level presentation about electric vehicles and why they're important and some of the environmental benefits and some of the downsides on the environment. And then my colleague, Annika Osborn, will go into more details about how do you drive electric and lots of details. And she's a subject matter expert as well. So Kevin, next. I'm a big fan of Al Gore and the Climate Reality Project. As Kevin mentioned, I'm a graduate from 2012, which seems now like a long time ago. But I really started Cool the Earth after seeing An Inconvenient Truth, going out on a date with my husband to go see a documentary called An Inconvenient Truth, and it really changed my life. And so from 2007, I've been working, we started Cool the Earth, and I've been working in this field ever since. So next. So with Cool the Earth, our first program was for school kids to teach them about climate and things that they could do, and also to get them to encourage their parents to also reduce their carbon footprint. So this was a program that ran in K-5 schools. We've reached over 250,000 students and their families, a national program. It's been translated into 5 different languages, run in 5 different countries as well. And we continue to run that somewhat through the pandemic and hope to be able to run that once things get a little bit more normalized in our schools, from COVID. So happy about that. We inspired over 300,000 energy-saving actions through that program. And in 2019, we launched a new campaign called Ride and Drive Clean. It's a collaboration with cities and agencies and other nonprofits. Cool the Earth acts as a backbone for this. And our primary purpose is to help drivers go electric, educate them about the availability of the vehicles, charging, et cetera, things that Annika will delve into. And so, first of all, I want to mention that, it's obvious that walking, biking, taking transit are definitely the best ways to get around from a carbon perspective and also from a vehicle congestion perspective, which I know in the Bay Area we all deal with. So I did want to say that, brag a little bit, that on my e-bike, I just surpassed 5,000 miles. And so I use the bike. We've now reduced from 2 electric vehicles to 1, and my husband and I use our e-bikes as a major form of transportation. And so let's talk about passenger vehicles and the reality that America is really a single passenger vehicle sort of country, whereas other countries have much more transit and people use more bikes. 73% of Americans use their cars to commute, and 87% of all passenger vehicles, all passenger miles are in cars and light trucks. So there's a number of ways to reduce your carbon footprint. I know the more recent Climate Reality program was on electrifying your home, and that's actually number 2. Switching to an EV is definitely the number 1 thing. Looking at who you bank with and fashion. These are all important decisions to make when we're trying to reduce carbon emissions. But in California and now across the United States, passenger vehicles are the number 1 source of carbon emissions. So the great thing is that we have an opportunity to switch to electric vehicles. It's within our personal control. And so it's something that's really taking off, and really excited to see the outcomes of our efforts and others in making sure that we really make this rapid transition to electric vehicles. I think we all probably know on this call that the timing of our carbon reductions is really important. And so, making the switch as soon as possible is really essential. And that's the only way we're going to meet our carbon goals. Next. So one of the questions we get a lot is, well, how clean are the vehicles? And I'll be talking a little bit about the batteries. That's really the major challenge with electric vehicles, but there's some really great solutions now to that issue. So in California, a gas car would need to get 134 miles per gallon to match an electric vehicle. Probably like many of you, I was an early adopter for the Prius. And, was amazed that I could get, 45 miles to the gallon. And so when EVs came along, we have rooftop solar, and it was extremely exciting to be able to charge our car from the sun. So we have an excellent opportunity here. And I did want to mention also that the grid in California is particularly clean. And many of you live in areas where you can also choose 100% renewable clean energy from community choice aggregators like MCE or Peninsula Clean. Let me think about this. PCE, Peninsula Clean Energy, East Bay Community Energy. There's a number of CCAs to provide us with 100% renewable energy. So those are all available, and I think Annika will be talking about those as well. I also wanted to mention that the electrical grid throughout the United States has become very clean compared to where it was a few years ago. So just about 4 or 5 years ago, in some states, it was still, because of the dirty electricity based on using coal, it was not carbon friendly to switch to an EV. But now everywhere in the United States, it is more lower carbon to drive an EV than it is with driving a gas car. And obviously, the grid is getting a lot cleaner and will continue to do so. And there's significant funding I'll be talking about later from the Inflation Reduction Act that really is encouraging private sector growth in things like solar, wind, et cetera. So let's see. So in the Union of Concerned Scientists, which is an esteemed nonprofit research group, studied electric vehicles and basically found that they are roughly half of the climate changing emissions of, and that electric vehicles will save you half of your carbon emissions from a similar gas car by the end of their lifetime. So it's important to note that there's an upfront carbon fee, I will call it. When you buy an electric vehicle, the battery does have more carbon emissions through manufacturing, extraction, production, et cetera. But then when driving the vehicle, because basically it's emitting no carbon at all, that over a lifetime, and oftentimes it's within 2 or 3 years, where the carbon savings surpass what you would get in a gas car. So there is that little upfront bump, but then it really switches over very, very quickly to become a really carbon reducer and great for the environment. So as I mentioned earlier, batteries are the challenge for this industry. And I'm sure most of you have heard that the metals are mined and that some of the mining companies have very harmful extraction techniques. But the fact is that we're moving in the right direction. And I want to talk about how we, from a minerals perspective, as well as from a policy perspective, are really making a rapid shift to improve the situation. So one of the first most important things is that the lithium-ion batteries have a very long lifetime use. So people always ask, well, how long will my battery last in the car? And thus far, there's been studies that have found that many of the batteries have lasted over 200,000 miles, and which is just fantastic, and probably longer than the actual chassis or the seats in your car will last. So that's really important that, first of all, they last for a really long time. In the electric vehicles, it's not that the battery just has a catastrophic failure. It's more that the range will continue to diminish over a number of years. But even that, with the diminishment, it's very, very minor. So research has said that these batteries will be available for a long time in the vehicles themselves. And now they're using lithium-ion batteries in large arrays. So for instance, in Amsterdam, they're using all Nissan Leaf batteries to power an entire stadium, which is pretty fantastic to see. And so they're using it. And in the US, we're starting to see larger arrays of batteries linked together. The batteries that are in the electric vehicles are quite huge. They are the equivalent to 6 or 8 power walls for storing the battery, for storing electricity at home. So they're very large batteries, and they have this fantastic second life, both in the large arrays, as well as for supplementing local microgrids and to feed the regional and national grid as well. Because we have so much solar in California, we need more storage for the solar, and the same with wind. So these batteries will be used for that as well. So recycling is also a really great story. So when you think about it, we're going from driving a vehicle for 200,000 miles, reuse in various situations on the grid or for buildings. And then once they have degraded even more, they can be sent out for recycling. And the various minerals, about 90% can be recycled. And these include very important minerals, which some of them are rare earth minerals and from locations that are geopolitically fraught with issues. So nickel, cobalt, magnesium, and lithium are all recyclable, which is really fantastic. People oftentimes think about the lead acid batteries that are in your vehicle for your radio and accessory ports. But and oftentimes those are shipped to Mexico and other places for recycling, where there's a lot of issues with leaching, et cetera. So the good news is there's such a high value with these minerals from the batteries that there's a recycling opportunity, which is really important. So on some really great news, we have passed, Congress has passed the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, bipartisan bills that it feels like it's rare when there's something bipartisan happening in our Congress, but this did occur, and there's some really fantastic news. First of all, there's $7.5 billion for new EV charging infrastructure, for public charging infrastructure, to build out corridors along our highways, and also for community charging. So we're really excited about that. The first rounds of funding have been approved, and they're starting to move to the states, and you'll be seeing the impact of that in your community. There's also a $370 billion or more investment in clean energy. And importantly, it's spurring private industry to really invest in this. This is the trend that we need to see occur, and it's happening already, which is, federal taxpayer investments and then private industry. Been very, very strong signals to industry that from the federal government and response from private industry for investing in clean energy and clean transportation. Also, a very important part of this is with these acts, they have enacted Build America, Buy America, and that the minerals for the electric vehicles, the steel for the solar and for wind, all need to be mined in America or one of our partners such as Canada, and that all of the elements are purchased in America. So it's a very, very important way to bring jobs back to America and to make sure that when we're mining and producing these products and manufacturing them, that they are done with sustainable practices and with human rights being completely adhered to. And so really excited about that, that the Biden administration passed that. So we're continuing to pressure lawmakers to make sure that the minerals and batteries and the solar arrays, et cetera, are really transported without harming the ecosystems, and especially without adverse impacts to people, especially in our indigenous communities. I know this chapter of Climate Reality Bay Area has been especially active in that regard. And there was a recent program about indigenous resistance in Alaska, which was quite inspirational. And I'd like to say personally thank you to Climate Reality for making this chapter such a global leader in this really important work. So we speak with people a lot about how to buy an EV, and then we also speak about things you can do beyond your own personal transportation. And I want to talk a little bit about that. I am a participant of a Marin Sonoma EV squad, and I think one of the leaders, David Muller, is here today. And we all work together. It's just local community members working together. We set agendas, we lobby local governments. We've been very successful in our efforts all around the EV transition. Some of our squad members will join us at EV car shows. They help us get the word out about our events, and we hope that folks on this call will also volunteer for one of our events. We're always looking for drivers to bring their cars and share their experience with event attendees. The squad also helps out with research, and so be happy to share more about that and how you can set up your own squad after this meeting. You can reach out to me. I'm sure Kevin will share my email address. The info at Cool the Earth or at Ride and Drive Clean. So a great deal of work has been put into the public charging infrastructure. And right now we have nearly 40,000 ports for fast charging across the US. And one thing that I'm very engaged in is also improving the consumer experience. We did a study with UC Berkeley that found that many of the stations were not functioning. And these stations are going in with VW Dieselgate funding or taxpayer funding. So I was invited to a federal working group that's hosted by the Joint Office of Energy and Transportation from the Department of Transportation. So I'm working on, it's called Charge X, which is a federal working group to ensure that first time, every time is a charging experience for all drivers. So meanwhile, we have some important policies in place. California is said no gas or passenger trucks beyond 2035. And also that's been enacted in a number of states as well. So that's really important. Also, really incredible news that in California, EVs were more than 25% of new cars sold at the first quarter of 2023. And also we have that $7.5 billion investment from the federal government for EV charging. One of the things we can all do also is really keep in touch with our local assembly members, local supervisors, city council, state level. And it's just so important that they hear our voice and that we continue to repeat our message, to gather others, to get engaged. As I said, we work with this EV squad and been very successful at having local reach codes and local programs enacted to really advance the EV adoption. Okay, so that's the end of my presentation. I wanted to turn it over to Annika to talk about some of the details about actually purchasing an EV.
It is my pleasure to introduce Annika Osborn. Annika is Director of Programs and Community Development for Cool the Earth. Tonight, she's offering a detailed look at EVs, everything from makes and models to incentives and charging. So, yay, and welcome, Annika.
Thank you, Kevin, for the introduction, and thank you, Carleen, for the great presentation. Okay, I'm excited to be here tonight to talk to you all. This is an abridged version of my typical EV 101 presentation that I do almost weekly. So trying to make it a little bit shorter, but trying to keep all the pertinent stuff in. So here's what I'll be talking about. The benefits of driving electric. We'll do an EV showcase. We'll talk about how to EV, which is mostly charging, and then a little bit more about Ride and Drive Clean and what we do. And at the end, we'll have a Q&A. Carleen has already talked about all of the environmental benefits of going electric. But in addition to reducing our impact on the planet, there is no sacrifice when we go electric. So we can save time, money, and actually improve our driving experience with an EV. And an EV can even help with backup power when there's a power outage. So although early EV drivers did pay a high premium to drive electric, today's EV drivers often save money, and there are a few reasons why. It costs much less to fuel an electric car. Fueling a gas car can be 2 to 5 times more expensive than fueling an EV, depending upon when and where you're charging. And electricity prices tend to be more stable, as we've seen over the last 2 years or so. In addition, maintenance costs are 40% lower for EVs. It's basically adding windshield wipers and windshield wiper fluid and rotating your tires. And then there are the standard incentives that are available for up to $9,500, which can additionally bring the cost of purchasing or leasing an EV down. And I'll dive right into those right now. So there are currently 4 types of incentives that can save us up to $9,500 when we buy an EV. There's the California state rebate, which is available for many EV buyers. It does have some income qualifications and vehicle price limits. It's kind of a good news, bad news thing. The state has run out of money for this rebate. As Carleen mentioned, 1 out of 4 cars bought in California this year is an EV. So they've been doling out a lot of these rebates, which is really great. So what they're doing now is some sort of standby list. So if you do buy an EV, make sure you apply for the state rebate and you will be placed on the standby list. There's a chance you'll get the rebate. The federal clean vehicle tax credit is available for up to $7,500. It does have some requirements. So it's available for purchased or financed EVs, and it goes against your tax liability when you file your taxes. So in order to claim the full $7,500, you have to owe $7,500. Like the state rebate, the credit also has some income and price limits now, and the EV must be assembled in North America. I'll review some of the eligible EVs on the next slide. Depending upon where you live and who provides your electricity, there might be additional utility and CCA incentives. For example, PG&E recently launched a pre-owned EV rebate. The standard rebate for anyone is $1,000, and it goes up to $4,000 depending upon your income. If you would like to install a charger at home, there's also the home charging tax credit. That's 30% of the cost, up to $1,000. And these are two excellent savings calculators that I recommend that you all test out. You can put in personalize these savings calculators and find out exactly which rebates you qualify for. Okay, so this is a current list of the EVs that qualify for the federal tax credit and the amount that they qualify for. So this credit was kind of revamped this year or last year, and a lot of these elements were put in place this year. So there are two battery elements. Each one is worth $3,750. That's why you see some of them are just that, and others qualify for both of the battery requirements. So there's a really good list of cars available, that do qualify for the federal tax credit when you purchase or finance your EV. There may be around all of these requirements for the tax credit. So if you lease an EV, the dealership may actually take the credit themselves and pass it along to you. So there are almost all of the EVs out there right now. If you lease your EV, you would get something like the $7,500, they're calling it like an EV lease credit or lease bonus or something like that. So that's one way to get around, some of these restrictions. If you're interested in a Kia or a Hyundai or one of these EVs that was not listed on that last slide. But definitely we recommend that you verify with your dealer or with Cartelligent to make sure they're passing that along before you sign the lease. So there's a new rebate this year also for used EV, federal tax credit. It does have some stricter income limits and vehicle costs. It's now available for up to $4,000 with a $25,000 vehicle price cap. It does have to be purchased from a licensed dealer. Here are the income limits to take advantage of the pre-owned tax credit. And it's good. About 2 years ago, it was hard to find a used EV for under $25,000, but now there are many on the market for about that price. And good news, starting in 2024, the consumer can ask the dealer to take the tax credit, and they will pass it along to the buyer or lessor at the point of sale, which should make things a little bit easier and give people a really nice down payment if they're choosing to purchase their EV. Okay, so in addition to saving money with an EV, you'll also save time. With a special decal, you can drive in the HOV lane as a single passenger. That I've heard is going to expire at the end of 2025. By then, I imagine the state thinks that maybe so many of the cars on the road will be EVs, so there's no point in letting all the EV drivers into the carpool lane. As I mentioned before, fewer maintenance visits because, there's 40% less costs, fewer maintenance visits, so you won't spend time scheduling those visits and having to get to the dealership or repair shop. Once in a while, you'll also get VIP parking. Oftentimes, you'll see these chargers are located at the very front entrance of shopping centers or workplaces. And then there's the experience of driving electric. It's just a little more fun. So what I really like is the extra torque or power that you get when you drive an EV. I love that I can quickly accelerate when I'm getting on the freeway and then easily just maneuver between lanes. It's nice and easy. The quiet, smooth drive makes for great conversations when you're on a road trip. And EVs offer the highest safety ratings. There are monitors outside, cameras and monitors outside of these EVs that make them very, very safe. Carleen mentioned a little bit about how we can use, there's EVs have these big batteries, and we can now take advantage of some of that electricity that's stored in the battery. It's really like a battery on wheels. So a couple of options here. You can plug in an inexpensive 300-watt inverter, the red box there on the left, into the accessory port of your car and power up small appliances like cell phones, laptops, LED lights. This is handy not only if there's, a power shutdown, but, just if you have a daily power outage and you need to, charge up your computer or your phone, it's super easy. I found myself sitting in my car and working at times using this nice little device. It's available for $30 on Amazon. But while this low wattage inverter cannot power up your refrigerator, which is, of great interest if there's a power shutdown, there are several new EVs out there this year, like the Kia EV6, the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and 6, the Fisker Ocean, that can, because they have higher wattage bidirectional chargers. So that's the picture in the middle there. You can just plug in this adapter and then you can plug in your power cord. I realize that it's not super convenient to, pull your refrigerator away from where it is installed at your wall. But, if you're going to lose power for a couple of days, it's definitely worthwhile. So the technology around inverters is advancing very quickly. There are so many companies working on these vehicle-to-home energy management systems. So just imagine when you come home at the end of the day, when electricity is expensive and not so clean, you can power up your home with the energy stored in your EV battery, and then power up your EV at midnight or during the day when the sun is shining, and there's ample, clean, inexpensive electricity available on the grid. So with over 40 models of EVs and another 40 plug-in hybrids on the market, there's now an EV really for every lifestyle and budget. So most fully electric EVs offer 200 to 300 miles of range. So, and some will go even farther on one charge. So that means you can go from San Francisco to Tahoe with maybe a 10-minute charging stop. And with some of these EVs, you don't even have to stop at all. But because EVs have regenerative braking on your way home from Tahoe, when you're going downhill, you won't have to stop. You most likely won't have to stop at all because you're charging your EV battery when you go downhill. You can also go from Walnut Creek to Sacramento and back without having to think about charging at all. And that was really not the case 5 years ago, besides a few very expensive Tesla models that were available. Okay, so in this next section, I'll be doing an EV showcase with lots of new and a few coming EVs. The prices listed are the base MSRP. And since there are additional incentives available, the actual cost could be much less. I've put a star next to all the cars that qualify for the federal tax credit, just so you can keep that in mind. So the Bolt is really the best deal around. It's a super fun and peppy car to drive. In 2017, it was really the first long-range EV that came to market under $40,000, and the pricing has come down significantly. The Bolt EUV is similar to the Bolt, but a little more spacious, especially in the back seat. So Chevy they told us a few months ago, oh, we're no longer going to make this model. We're going to make room for other models. But I think there was so much pushback. They're actually coming out with a 2024 model now. So we'll continue to see these great EVs, which are incidentally very easy to park if you live in the city or if you have a small place to park, really great cars. Here are a few popular models that you've most likely seen around. The Hyundai Kona and the Kia Niro are great crossovers. The Nissan Leaf has been around for a really long time, and there's even the Plus model with a little higher range at just a little more cost. Incidentally, the average price of a new car in the United States this year is $48,000. So these models are very competitive, and that's before incentives. And then there's Tesla. We like to separate the CEO from the technology. The Model 3 and Y are the most affordable options. The Tesla has, their own proprietary supercharging network, and charging is convenient, easy, and fast. Reliable, did I say that? Yes. Teslas are really, easy to manage. They're great for road trips. They're some of the safest cars out there. And the Model Y has an optional third row and seats 7 passengers. So the cars on this slide all have a offer bidirectional charging. So these are the cars where you can power your refrigerator or other large home appliances. No need for a gas generator at home. And these next cars came out in 2021, so they're relatively new. The ID.4 is the first from Volkswagen, the Volkswagen ID brand. There are more coming. I think we have to wait till 2024 for that ID Buzz, which is the Volkswagen bus really remade. I saw one at a car show this last weekend, and it's really cool looking. I dream about that one once in a while. People love the Mustang Mach-E, and the Polestar is a relative of Volvo. It's a very nicely appointed car. It handles really, really well. Let's see, Subaru and Toyota were a little late to the EV market, but we're really excited to see some of their EV fully electric models on the road now. The Nissan Ariya is Nissan's second all-electric EV. And BMW is offering these new models now. They had the i3 for a good number of years. It was super popular. Now they have the i4 and the iX. And the Audi Q4 e-tron comes in at a really great price, $20,000 less than the regular Audi e-tron, and it actually has more range. So really nice options there. The Volvo Recharge brand has two EVs, this sleek C40, which is featured on this slide. They also have the XC40 SUV, which is not on this slide, but it looks a little bit more like your traditional boxier Volvo. Really nice car. The Cadillac Lyriq uses the new Ultium battery technology, and the Lexus RZ 450e is the first ever fully electric Lexus. I saw that one at a charging station a few weeks ago. It's a beautiful car. So trucks are here and more are on their way. We're especially excited about the Ford F-150 Lightning, which offers extra resiliency with its bidirectional charger. It's basically a battery on wheels. And it can be, so at home, it can be hooked up to your home electric panel, but on the road, you can use it to power up electric tools, medical devices, really anything you need. The Chevy Silverado is coming out later this year, and over 1 million people have ordered the Cybertruck, which is also coming soon. It'll be interesting to start seeing that one on the road. And then Rivian is another all-electric EV manufacturer. Their cars offer excellent utility with a high range. As an environmental nonprofit, we appreciate the fact that Rivian answers the high consumer demand for both SUVs and trucks. They're really positioning themselves as an adventure company and putting in, a charging network in remote locations and national parks all over the country. Here in the Bay Area, I've seen some level 2 chargers over at Crissy Field and Simpson Beach. They're offering some free charging there, which is really easy to use and nice and convenient. Because you wouldn't want to get stuck at Stinson Beach, would you? So the next few slides will showcase new EVs coming out this year. So Chevrolet is, along with keeping that Chevy Bolt alive, mixing it up with a few exciting new models, the Chevy Blazer and the Equinox. And so Fisker Ocean is unique with a full-length sky solar roof. If it's parked in the sun during the day, it can generate 1,500 emissions-free miles per year. And at the push of a button, all 8 windows come down, and including the solar sky roof, making it a convertible, really the first convertible EV. Besides the Tesla Roadster, which is a tiny little sports car. The Kia EV9 has 7 seats, and the Volvo EX30, the way they're positioning it is small in size, big on safety, true to the Volvo reputation. So we're excited to see those coming out, soon. But if you can't find an all-electric car that works for you, there are many plug-in hybrids, or PHEVs as we call them, out there. If you plug in a PHEV every day, you may be able to cover your daily driving all electric, and you can save the gas tank for road trips. And if you're looking for a larger plug-in hybrid, there are several utility hybrids out there. I know it's really hard to get your hands on one of those, a used Chrysler Pacifica EV. It seems like so many people want that car, but they're out there. So EVs have been around for 10 to 12 years, and with this new technology, people have tended to lease their EVs. So there are always lots of used EVs available on the market. And these leases, EVs are always coming off their leases. So there's a constant turnaround and always some used EVs out there. There are also, here are just a couple of the more affordable EVs out there. There are some higher range EVs like Chevy Bolts and Teslas available on the used market as well. I just bought a used Tesla Model Y. If anybody has any questions about that process, happy to talk to you about that as well. So if you're not in the market for an EV, an e-bike might be right for you. Instead of hopping in a gas car, you can try commuting or running errands with an e-bike. So e-bikes are fun and fast. There are so many different types and models to choose from, from cargo to commuter to recreational bikes. I love seeing kind of whole families on cargo bikes. It's like the new minivan for progressives. It's pretty funny. But we do want to just say that you want to ensure, there have been some issues you may have read in the news about some fires. You want to ensure that you select an e-bike that's equipped with an international or UL certified high quality battery. And you always want to verify battery certification details. And if you ever need to replace a battery on an EV, we recommend that you go with the manufacturer's battery as well. While we're talking about e-bikes, I thought I would plug our current e-bike discount campaign that's going on right now. We've partnered with Rad Power Bikes, and the City of Palo Alto Utilities has funded us to run this discount campaign. So actually, this is going to go on through the end of the year. You can get discounts on these very reasonably priced e-bikes, either by going into the shop in Berkeley or by calling them. So we have more information about this on our website as well. Maybe there'll be something on the in the follow-up email. So I'm going to do a quick overview on charging. So people get worried about charging, but for most people, 80 to 90% of charging is done at home. And charging at home is really easy. You just plug in the charger that comes with your vehicle into a standard 120 volt outlet. There are no install costs. You may need to pick up a heavy duty extension cord so you can reach it from your outlet to your car. It gives you, they call this trickle charge, which sounds really slow, and it is, but it does give you 25 to 40 miles of charge in 8 hours, which is often overnight. Or if you are parking your car at home during the day when the sun is shining, you can pick up a lot of nice charge, over a longer period of time. In the Bay Area, I will note, on average, people drive 25 miles a day. So this simple solution works out great for most people. If not, you will want to see if you can charge at work. And if that's not available yet, you will want to purchase a home charging station for level 2 charging, which will get you 25 miles in an hour, so you can easily get a full charge overnight. But I do want to point out that charging an EV is very different from fueling up a gas car. When I had a gas car, I would wait until it went down to 1/8 of the tank. Then I'd go to the gas station, fill it up all the way, and I would just deplete it throughout the week and repeat. But with an EV, what I'm doing is I plug it in every day or as needed, and I'm really just replenishing the energy that I used that day. So I can almost always keep it at an 80% charge, which is what's recommended. So charging away from home is easy too. There are many level 2 public chargers available at shopping centers and around town. So you can charge while you're running errands. But when you're on a road trip, you'll want the fastest charging available, which is level 3 charging. You can see right now there are 3 different standards for level 3 charging. The one on the left there is for the Nissan Leaf, the one on the right is for Tesla, and the one in the middle is for all other EVs. I do want to note also that just recently, in the last few months, most EV manufacturers are going to be migrating over to the Tesla standard, which is now called the North American Charging Standard, the one on the right. So in 2024, there will be adapters available. So all EVs with this adapter will be able to use the Tesla supercharging network. And in 2025, the new EVs for most EV manufacturers will actually have a Tesla port. So you don't need an adapter. And I just want to point out why this is so significant. We've talked a little bit about reliability. We really need these chargers to work when we're on a road trip. And also in terms of, equity for people who rely on public charging stations, they need to work all the time. And the Tesla charging stations are very reliable. They come in at like 98% reliability. And so this is really important, really significant. I can imagine why all these big manufacturers like GM and Ford want to migrate over to a standard where the charging actually works. All right. So once you start driving electric, it's ideal to charge your EV from rooftop solar. There's a federal tax credit available for 30% of the cost of installing solar and a battery for storage for the next 10 years. If you're not ready for solar, Carleen was talking a little bit about these clean energy plans that our utilities and CCAs offer. They're all listed, all of the different small utilities and CCAs in the Bay Area. And they all offer 100% renewable energy. And in addition to clean energy, your utility might also offer a special reduced EV or time of use rate so that you pay less for electricity during certain times of the day. At this point, all utilities, all CCAs are recommending that if you can, charge during the day when the sun is shining, because we have a surplus of solar energy on the grid. If that's not available to you, you can charge at midnight, after midnight, but really try to avoid charging between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. That's the peak energy time. So you want to avoid that to save money and to ensure that you're charging with clean energy. So there are several EV charging solutions for people who live in apartments and condos. More solutions are on their way. You can charge by plugging into a regular 120 standard outlet. There are these new smart outlets available that can help you with that if you have your car in a shared space, like a parking garage. People charge at work, and then people use public chargers. And on average, fast charging will get you about 70% of your battery charge from like 10% to 80% in less than 30 minutes. And then when you are going on a road trip, road tripping is getting easier all the time. There are thousands of public charging stations out there, and we can use these awesome navigation apps to help us find chargers along the way. I always plan my trip out the night before I go, so I know where I'm going to stop and charge, because I'm like, oh, do I want to go to the outlets, or do I want to go to my favorite taqueria? Kind of got to plan your trip out. We can use PlugShare and a better route planner to figure all that out. Electrify America, EVgo, ChargePoint, Tesla all offer, these, on the road charging, public charging. And it's easy to tap, charge, and go. When we do emphasize it's important to practice before you go on a road trip. Make sure you get signed up for these networks, so you don't want to be like adding your credit card to the app while you're on the road. Great. So a little bit more about what we do. So we are here to help you go electric. We offer EV and e-bike discount campaigns with partners like Cartelligent and Rad Power Bikes. We host EV and e-bike shows, so you can check out new and some of the most popular EVs out there all at one event. We have a few coming up in the next few weeks in Richmond, Greenbrae, Pinole, San Rafael, and Alameda. Please join us with your EV and e-bike. We'd love to have you there. Or if you're interested in getting an EV, come and check it out. We have these EV 101 and 102 webinars. 102 is if you've just recently bought an EV, just a little bit of a deeper dive. And then our website, Ride and Drive Clean, has lots of great resources, buying guides, quick start guides, and such. So as Carleen mentioned, well, first of all, I'd like to thank you all for attending this program, wherever you are in your journey to an EV. Just kind of re-emphasizing, Carleen has mentioned, if you can switch to an EV, the sooner the better. But really, please don't buy a new gas car, because it will be on this earth for a really long time, emitting, with lots of emissions. And we need to really stop burning fossil fuels as soon as possible. Okay, we've moved on to Q&A.
Oh, yay. Well, please, everyone, join me in a round of Zoom applause for both Annika and Carleen. Heck, now it's time to answer questions. We can invite anybody to unmute and ask a question live and direct. And then I know, Carleen, you have been looking a little bit at the chat, and I'm wondering if you have any questions that people are asking that we want to start with.
Sure. Yes, there's definitely some questions. One of the questions was about replacing an EV battery. And somebody said that they had heard on, I think, Nextdoor, Facebook, that it was $30,000. I would tell them to go to another body shop or mechanic to get a different quote, because, rarely do I ever hear about people needing to replace their battery. Some of the early Nissan Leafs had battery issues. And so that was definitely a problem early on. And so I've heard, it's somewhere around $3,000 to replace a battery, like for the Nissan Leaf. Obviously, if you're replacing a larger battery, say for a Rivian or a Ford F-150, that could be much more expensive. Some of the batteries are changing to modular mode so that you can actually replace part of the battery. So it's really going to depend on the vehicle, but I've never heard of anything quite nearly that expensive. And let's see.
And Carleen, too, I think, and this may have been just a type of car, but I think that person also mentioned that at 70,000 miles, they found it necessary to swap it out. And I don't know if that's a common experience at all. My car has like 65,000 and it's only lost 10% of its total range.
So another question in chat is about the price for plug-in hybrids, and that there is some of the dealerships are adding on their own costs to the vehicles because there's low inventory. So I know that was happening for a lot of EVs. Annika, how long ago? Even like 6 months ago, maybe?
Yeah, and I think for some of the popular models like the RAV4 Prime, I mean, I don't know if they've ever stopped having that like surplus charge. It seems like it's just a really popular car. But yeah, the good news is most EVs have a range of 200 to 300, the fully electric EVs, which is really ample for most people's driving. It really depends on your own individual needs, but it's a great option to go all electric if you can.
Yeah, so I think the supply chain issues kind of have some lingering effect, but in general, the supplies are increasing quite dramatically. So I would say if you can wait a little bit to get your the plug-in hybrid that you're looking for, you might want to do that. Somebody also asked that they heard from EV owners that small rodents love to live in an EV, and also that the tires need to be replaced. So I can address the tire situation, which EVs are heavier and they have a tremendous amount of torque. So that does tend to wear down the tires more than a traditional gas car. One thing to make sure you do is rotate the tires because that will definitely increase the life of them. And also, though, I wanted to say about the weight of the vehicle, that because the battery is in the center and the bottom of the car, the vehicles are extremely stable, including for the SUVs, and they don't roll over nearly as much, really ever, compared to gas cars, especially SUVs, which can actually be quite dangerous. So there's that to consider.
Hey, Carleen, we have a question from Jim Bronson, who is dialing in from Eugene. Third Act Eugene, that's awesome. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, thanks for everything you've done so far. It's been a great presentation. I'm wondering about the Fisker cars that you mentioned. That is kind of a dark horse, and I wonder if you could kind of fill in a little bit, because it seems like they're really leaning toward innovating in special ways, like having solar on the roof.
I mean, I think we're kind of on hold a little bit with the Fisker Ocean. They were going to release this car earlier this year. I read this fabulous article about the Fisker Ocean, and it just seemed like a really exciting model. And the price is right. They think it's going to be around $40,000. I think we kind of have to wait and see a little bit with that one because we haven't. I don't think many have been delivered here in the United States yet.
Yeah, and Fisker, a number of years ago, lost most of their inventory in a flood in New Jersey, a climate impact. So I know they were struggling a lot financially, and so I think they kind of slowed down a little bit. But they're very innovative, and so hoping they can make a bigger push.
Did that answer your question, Jim?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you so much. I'll keep my eyes open.
Yay. Kevin from Climate Reality Bay Area has a question. Oh, thank you, Kevin. I'm curious about where we are in EV adoption. If we have been mostly in the realm of early adopters buying EVs, talking about them, are we almost to mass market? Are we almost to some other thing besides early adopters?
Yeah, I'll address that. So in California, I would say we are in the innovators phase and kind of we're solidly in the innovators phase and should shortly be moving to the mass market. There is some concern, and I'm not sure how much this is in California, but nationally there have been polls that while many people are considering their next car to be electric, that about 50% of the population is saying they will not consider an electric vehicle. So that's of concern. But the hope is that it follows most technology trends where there is a large part of the population that's saying they'll never get a microwave, they'll never get a cell phone, and then eventually those are kind of the laggards and they tend to come along for the ride. There's definitely more vehicle types needed. We need more trucks and pickup trucks, and we need some more SUVs. But do note that there is an environmental cost to those because of the larger batteries, and they are less efficient than sedans. If you have an option, I would definitely go for a smaller vehicle and look for the efficiency. The Chevy Bolt is a very, very efficient vehicle. And so that's one of my favorites because of the efficiencies.
Nice. Thank you. And Harriet and then Audrey. Go ahead, Harriet.
Yeah, so I'll lower my hand. So having two young adult sons who are wanting to transition to an EV and are on a limited budget, they're looking to buy a used EV. And as Linda points out in the chat, there is something to maintaining battery health in the way you maintain your EV and the way you charge it and the way where you store it and that kind of thing. Is there any guidance coming out there as to how to assess battery health before you purchase a used EV?
Annika, I'll respond to that part way and you could respond to the rest. Thank you for that question. Really important. Two things. One, at the federal level, there's a group working in the national labs who are looking at ways that we can test used electric vehicle batteries to really understand the degradation and any other potential issues with the battery. So that's in process now. And I know that there's a couple of new startups who are also, they say they've developed or they're in the process of developing tools to test the used batteries as well. So I think those are really important developments. I know when I look for a used EV, I basically look at the rate that if it says that it's going to get 200 miles, I look at the rate when the battery's fully charged to see what the range is. I think just making sure that it's in good shape. I do think the number one thing is if you're going to buy a used car, know what the range is from the manufacturer and then ask the person you're buying it from or the dealership to charge it to 100%. And see what the range is once you just turn on the car, because that's a really great indicator of any battery degradation.
And
Thank you.
did that answer your question? I wonder.
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Okay, yay. All right, we have Audrey and then Mueller Ford. Audrey, go ahead.
Thank you. This is great. I have two kind of different questions, but maybe just the first will apply here, which is what would be a good reference for a timeline for community charging? I am an urban renter, and a lot of the resistance that my peers have has to do with accessibility of charging infrastructure. And I know that is being built out, but is there any, what's a good reference for to send people to see what is currently available in their area or what is on the horizon?
So there's the PlugShare app that lists all of the stations, level 2, DC fast charging, etc. So I would definitely send them there first. I don't know if there's a blueprint anywhere that can identify the stations that are coming. Sometimes they're announced, but oftentimes they're being installed by private companies, so we frequently don't know when those stations are coming in the ground. But I did want to point out that as part of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, that there's $1.25 billion for community charging, and that's going into various locations. There's definitely an emphasis on equity and for folks in multifamily. So that funding is being rolled out over 4 years. So you'll definitely see many new charging stations, across the U.S. So there's the NEVI, which is the National Electric Vehicle Initiative. That's $5 billion for EV charging along highways. There's another $1 billion for corridors, and then another $1.25 billion for community charging. So there's a lot of charging coming, and we're working on this to make sure also really looking at trying to have price equity as well, because many folks who are in multifamily, we're trying to make sure that there's not an excessive fee beyond what you pay at home. That's going to be one of the challenges. In particular, we're really advocating that folks who get low cost electricity at home through what's called a CARE or FARA program, that they can also access that low cost electricity when they go out to charge. So those are things that are in the early stages, but that we're definitely advocating for. The last thing I want to mention about this is that we are considering starting a new campaign to work with people who live in multifamily housing to be able to arm you all with the tools and the information about lower cost charging options if you have a parking space at your condo or apartment. So that's something new we're looking at, and I'd love to speak with anybody who's living in a multifamily housing area that I'd love to do a listening session to hear about your needs and interests and concerns. So you could drop your information in the chat or email us at info@rideanddriveclean.org, and would love to have further discussion about that.
Yay. I need to point out that it is 7:15, and Mueller, Ford, and Adelaide, we're going to get to your question, but for purposes of our video, which will be online, I'd like to ask Harriet just to do a quick close and then invite Mueller, Ford, and Adelaide to stick around, and anyone else who wants to stick around. Do you want to offer us a close here, Harriet? Let me put you in with this august group.
Oh, well, so we are just going to do a quick official wrap up. Please do stay though. Both of our wonderful speakers have agreed to stay an extra 15 minutes, and the conversation and the questions have been really excellent. So please do continue. So I did also put a link in the chat to Climate Reality Project's pledge to electrify your life. It couldn't be more important. There's precious time left between now and 2030 to really, really make big sweeping changes. And we've seen tonight how really possible that is in the transportation sector. So please do that. And I believe that will be all I need to update us on before we move into our extra Q&A. Thank you all for joining us, and please stay with us for a few more minutes.
And, we really have to give Harriet a round of applause since she organized and was the guiding spirit for this show. Thank you, Harriet. That was awesome that you did that.
Kevin was equal partner in this. So really credit due there as well. We always appreciate Kevin for his advocacy.
And she's just, very humble too. All right, let me highlight our speakers. And Mueller Ford, are you ready to ask a question?
Yes, I am. I'm Jane Mueller of the Mueller-Ford combo.
I was hoping you were going to explain that.
Yeah, there was different last names. But thanks to Ride and Drive Clean and Cartelligent, almost 3 years ago, I leased a Kia Niro EV. And so the lease is about to end. And I've been thinking, okay, what is the next step? I leased it because I thought, the technology will probably advance in 3 years, and then I will look at what the options are then. But I'm wondering, and Annika, thank you, already replied to me privately in chat. I'm wondering, since I am not a new adopter of EV, do I still qualify for rebates? And she tells me federal, yes, probably. I'm leasing from a dealer who got the rebate and passed it along to me. And I just wondered if that means then, since I'm not a new adopter, then I can't get a rebate. I guess I could.
If you lease, it's fine. You can, if they're passing along the lease rebate, then it's not a problem at all. That is available anytime they're offering it. So it's really the state rebate. If you've already received it once, then you can't get it again. That's if you've received it once after 2020, you can't receive it again. But right now, the state rebate is not funded. But yeah, the federal tax credit, absolutely. And the PG&E pre-owned rebate is also available.
Wonderful. Another little thing that I just learned while I was waiting to ask my question. I am a member of a group called Mission Peak Village. It's a co-housing community that has bought a piece of property and is going to build a multifamily residence that we all will live in. I'm so glad to hear about multifamily charging stations that might be available, and I do want to get in touch with Carleen and see how we can. We're maybe 2 years out from actually building, how we can plan ahead for something like this.
Yay! And
great.
I just put info at rideanddriveclean.org in the chat. That's a great place to ask questions. And thank you for your questions. Adelaide, do you have the name of our favorite South Australian city? Are you calling from Adelaide?
No, but I just was in Adelaide a couple months ago, so that's wonderful.
Right on.
Great. I have a couple questions, but Carleen, I did put some information in the chat about, we have an EV charging station committee in our HOA. It's a 99-unit building, and we are struggling to find electricians that can do the infrastructure work, and the estimates that we're getting are really high. And whether there are rebates for that kind of thing that we can tap into, because otherwise we have to get a special assessment from all the property owners and so forth. So we are just like, every turn we make gets kind of blocked. Yet there's a huge appetite to do it in our building. So if there's anything we could do offline to help figure that out, we'd love to.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd appreciate that conversation. I can maybe provide you with a few ideas, but I'm also really looking to learn from you all about what the challenges are, so that we can start to figure out how to address some of those.
Okay, great.
It's definitely a huge issue.
I'll put my my email address in the chat to you directly as well.
Great. That'd be great. Kevin, are you saving the chat?
I am saving the chat.
Okay, I will do that before we hang up. The other question that I have is, I was reading where payment at charging stations is like, you have to have all these different apps and stuff, depending on whose charger it is on it. So in addition to standardizing the chargers, are they also trying to standardize the payment at the charging stations?
Yes. So with the federal funding and also in California, all the stations are going to be required. Well, actually, as of January, the fast charging stations are required to have a credit card tap system. And so basically it's moving to credit card tap, smartphone wallet access, and similar, so that you don't need to have all the charging cards. Level 2 is supposed to be implemented, that law implemented, I think, in January 1st, 2024. So the existing stock of stations won't have to be retrofitted, but new stations will have to have the payment option. So we're in a little bit of a transition period there.
Okay, but it's moving in the right direction at least.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you, Adelaide. And we have time for one more question, which I'm excited to say will be Audrey Heller. And I'm also excited to say thank you. We have 27 people who stayed through to the very end. You're all awesome. Audrey, go ahead.
Hi. I wanted to wait till the technical questions were through, but I had a question in the chat that you partially responded to, and I was looking for your insights on the UAW strike and the EV transition issues there. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and what you understand of the demands.
So, right, from my understanding, both from working at the federal level as well as just what I read in the news, which you all I'm sure read as well, some of the CEOs like Jim Farley of Ford, who has been very pro EV, has said basically that if they make the concessions that the union workers are demanding, that they basically will have to reduce their investments in electric vehicles. I'm not quite sure how we get there exactly, but that's definitely been stated publicly. On the other hand, with the jobs, there's definitely less workers are required on the assembly lines to manufacture electric vehicles. There are 100 parts versus a gas vehicle, something like 10,000 parts. So definitely that's going to reduce the need for workers. However, with the Inflation Reduction Act and the funding coming in to Build America, Buy America, there's already been an estimated 170,000 jobs in the clean energy sector and estimated to be another 1.5 million jobs by the end of the decade. So I know that there is also workforce development funding in the IRA and the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. So really looking to provide education, workforce education for people who are working in coal mines and similar to really educate them about moving over to solar and wind, and the same with vehicles. But it's also important to note that because of Build America, Buy America, many of the foreign auto manufacturers have already begun breaking ground on building plants to manufacture the vehicles and assemble the vehicles here in the U.S. So that's also going to be a new influx of jobs.
My understanding was that the UAW was trying to extend the union to include some people who were in the manufacturing of batteries and other EV parts, and that was an issue, and also coverage for any closures of gas vehicle plants. So
manufacturing plants. Okay, yeah, that's good to know. It's a very concerning issue overall.
It's an interesting one.
Yeah. There was a question. I'm not sure if the person is still here. There's a question about California Assembly Bill 233. Is the person who asked that still?
Actually, that's Senate Bill 233 by Senator Skinner, bidirectional electric vehicle charging.
Right.
And it made it through all the committees of jurisdiction, through appropriations, and then got put on inactive status before it could get to the floor for a vote. And I'm wondering if there's hope of moving that in the next session? And is there any strategy or coalition forming to try and get that across the finish line?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I've been in touch with several of the auto OEMs about this, and there's definitely strong resistance to this bill. And one of the big issues is about the batteries and the concern about bidirectional charging and the impact on the batteries, because the batteries have a certain number of cycles, and there's concern about battery degradation. And then there's also concern about equity issues that basically are saying it costs them more to manufacture vehicles with bidirectional charging. And there's a lot of people who live in multifamily and people who don't need bidirectional, and that basically that will increase the cost of the vehicles. I think the unspoken truth of this also is that folks like Tesla plan to upcharge for the technology. And I would imagine that other auto manufacturers also want to make that as an add-on to the vehicles. So I think that there's, they're protecting their businesses, and obviously they have a lot of influence, in the Capitol, Sacramento. So I think that, I don't know where it's going to go. I just know that some of the auto OEMs want to see it turned into a study, which is basically a way to try to slow it down or kill the bill. And I'm not sure, Annika or Kevin, do you know if there are any coordinated actions? I know the Climate Center is really leading this. Do you know if there's any sort of coalition building around this?
I have not heard of anything new since the recent news that it was not going to end well right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe the Climate Center has some information on their website. I could check.
Yeah. But Robert, thank you for the question. I am going to say thank you to all of you, and thank you to our presenters, and thank you to Climate Reality Bay Area. You're going to get a link to this video, and I don't know, Annika, we should give them your slide deck, right?
Oh, yeah. I can download that as a PDF and send it your way.
We'll figure it out. We're going to follow up with everybody. Again, give yourselves a round of applause, and we're going to end this now. Cheers, kids.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks so much for attending.